Okay, so before we get into today's video, I cannot preface this enough. Trigger warnings, trigger warnings, trigger warnings. Read them for every book that I go over, some more than others, but all of them just in case, because I wouldn't trust what my desensitized self will say, because I will say the most outlandish things like Playground by Erin Beauregard is cute. Actually, that's not something I'd say. I take that back. That was just a example. Anyways, let's just jump into it. Hello, friends, new and old. My name's Goldie, and I do be reading. It's snowing right now, so I can't help but kind of look outside. It's beautiful, but anyways, so on this channel, I just kind of go over what I read, which usually that is horror, thriller, splatterpunk, but I do dabble in other genres. What we're going to do today is go over my 2024 most memorable reads, probably for legal reasons. I can't claim these as my favorite. They're not my favorite books, let's make that clear. They're just my most memorable reads. So let's do it. One of the first books I read this year was My Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell. And in this book, we're following a teenage Vanessa and a present-day Vanessa. Teenage Vanessa, she got entangled with her very much older teacher. Present-day Vanessa gets contacted by another former student who was, I don't believe in her class, I actually don't remember, but just another former student who is bringing to light these allegations against this teacher because she was also SA'd by this teacher. So this former student is asking Vanessa, will you come out also? So then we watch present day Vanessa come to terms and realize what teenage Vanessa went through was not normal, was not love, and was not okay. This book was an extremely hard read for me. And it's not like my normal hard reads of being so disturbing and gross and gory, but this was too real. It was like real life monsters, and that made it even more unsettling. But even though this was an extremely difficult read for me, it left a huge impact on me. So I highly recommend this book. Again, please trigger warnings. Read them. But I highly recommend this book. It's beautifully written. It's heartbreaking, but it's amazing. The next book I want to talk about is The Great Alone by Kirsten Hanna. So in this book, we're following a family that relocates to Alaska because the father in this family becomes extremely impulsive after fighting in the Vietnam War. He just lost his job. He can't hold down work. So he thinks that moving to Alaska will save him and save the family, and that's what they need to be happy. So we follow them moving to Alaska, and at first everything seems fine and wonderful, and Dad even seems like he's getting better, but then it takes an unfortunate turn. I want to start off by reading a quote that really stuck with me from this book. Two kinds of folk come to Alaska. People running to something and people running away from something. The second kind, you want to keep your eye out for them. And I don't know why, but that gave me shivers because it really laid out the storyline to this book. This whole book was beautifully devastating. And I also want to just say I'm obsessed with reading books that are based in Alaska. So if you have any recommendations for books that are based in Alaska, please leave them in the comments because I'm just obsessed. Up next is the reason this video is titled 2024 Most Memorable Books and not Most Favorite Books, because if I said this is my favorite book, that would probably be criminal and I would go to jail. And that is Dead Inside by Chandler Morris. Most memorable, not favorite. Let's make that very clear. And honestly, there's no better way of explaining this book than these two sentences in the synopsis. A young hospital security guard with a disturbingly unique taste in women, a maternity doctor with a horrifically unusual appetite. Those two sentences, I don't think I really need to get more into this book. So I I do feel like it's a crime that I like this book as much as I did. I feel deeply ashamed of myself. And there is this one specific scene that actually turned my stomach and made me physically ill. Why I liked it so much, I have no idea. Even though this book was absolutely disgusting, I couldn't help but enjoy it. Sorry. Lock me up. Put me away. On to the next book, which is more normal than Dead Inside. However, still not normal. The next book is The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. So in this book, we are following a girl and her family where the father just abandoned them. And their mother, very recently after they're abandoned by the father, starts dating another man. And the sisters, do not like this guy at all. So we follow our main character and watch her rage progress and her obsession for eyes progress as well. Now, I feel like a crazy person for saying this, but the way that food is described in this book, it's so detailed and it's actually mouthwatering. So if I were to tell someone that did not read this book at all that this book made me hungry, I think people would definitely be worried about me. So one of my favorite things is an unreliable narrator, and I felt like not only do we have an unreliable narrator, but everyone just didn't seem okay. No one seemed right, and it was creepy. It was creepy because you didn't know who was good, who was bad, or what was happening. This felt very much like a fever dream. I just didn't know what was real and what wasn't. So the next book I'm going to go over is another deeply disturbing book, which I don't even know if I'm allowed to say the title of this book. So I'm just going to show it here. And this is by John Athan. In this book, our main character is a father, and we're following him and his family. He starts to notice this man that appears everywhere they are after an encounter they had at the playground. Our main character does get the police involved. However, the man is able to talk himself out of it, and so the police just say it's a coincidence. After the false reassurance from the police, our main character's daughter does end up missing. The main character takes matters into his own hands trying to find his daughter. So I cannot emphasize enough how hard of a read this one is. And again, please read the trigger warnings on this one. This was extremely difficult to get through. And even though it was extremely difficult to get through, I was on the edge of my seat the whole entire time. This book really shows what a parent is capable of for their child. All right, so the next book that really stuck with me was 100% Match by Patrick C. Harrison III. There is no better way of explaining this than the synopsis itself. So let me just go over it. Bart is thirsty. He is bald. He is overweight. He wears glasses. He is a fry cook. He hates cats and kids. Bart occasionally does very bad things. He is looking for his perfect match. He has done his research. This book, and of course, there were still disturbing moments in this book, but it ended up being quite funny. The way that our main character will be completely normal and doing normal things, and then all of a sudden out of left field, he says the most outlandish thing or do the most crazy absurd thing. The shock value was one of my favorite parts. This one was very short and very fun. Up next is another book that I really liked but shouldn't, is The Slob by Erin Beauregard. In this book, our main character is raised in a filthy house, which causes her to become a neat freak as she grows up. With her new skill of being a clean freak, she wants to try to generate some income for her family, for her and her disabled husband and her unborn child. So she decides to become a door-to-door salesman. And I will leave it at that. If this book taught me anything, it taught me exactly what I don't want to be when I grow up. And even though this was another absolutely disgusting book, I really enjoyed the plot. And honestly, I simply can't stop thinking about this book. All right, so let's take a break from the bloody, gory stuff and let's get into emotional turmoil with My Darling Dreadful Thing by Joanne Van Veen. Our main character in this book has a spirit companion, and because of this, her mother forces her to do seances for money, because if you're not making money, you're good for nothing. And in one of these seances, our main character meets a woman who wants to reach her husband who recently passed away. After the seance, the woman ends up buying our main character from her mother because of her ability to contact the dead. So she does end up moving in with this woman who is very wealthy. So even though they really end up starting to care for each other, liking each other, how does someone end up dead? Our main character then talks to a doctor to see if she's even mentally fit to stand trial. So before this book, I was never interested in Gothic literature, and I honestly don't even know how I ended up reading this book. I think it was just available on Libby, and so I checked it out and gave it a shot. And I have been missing out, and I will definitely be reading more Gothic literature. The writing was just so eerily romantic, and I genuinely was on my toes the entire time. With how beautiful the writing was, it really distracted me, so I wasn't able to guess what was going to happen. This was just so beautiful. It's really snowing now. Man, finally in the true December spirit. Last but not least, the next book is Aurora by David Cope. So in this book, we are following a woman who was recently left by her ex-husband who has a criminal past. Her ex-husband also left behind his teenage son because his teenage son did want to stay with his stepmother because he hates his father. These two have a close but complicated relationship because he is a teenage boy. But then all of a sudden the lights go out, not just for them, but for the whole world. A solar storm happens, all power, electricity gone. So the power outage causes a lot of problems for our main character, and not just the obvious things like not having power, but a lot of personal turmoil comes to light. So our main character has a very wealthy brother who ended up creating a bunker, and he was completely prepared for this solar storm. Her brother, still caring for her, even though they're not on speaking terms, tries to help her out, but she just refuses. She does not want it. We then will see how both her and her brother get through this, if they even do. So this book has probably changed my life, and I want to start off by a quote that I love, which is, "Talk to people. I promise you, there is absolutely nothing more worth doing." I genuinely cannot be happier that I was able to read this book before going into 2025. This line alone has really made me reevaluate my New Year's goals, as I'm very introverted and I would like to work on my people skills and just talking to others. And I can't help but give this book a 5-star rating because of how deeply it's affected me. They really get into the importance of community and how you really cannot survive without it. Even if you're the most prepared person, if you do not have a supportive community, you're screwed. This book's really inspired me to continue to work at and try to make videos, because I might just be lucky enough to find my community online. Enough with that. Let's take a sip. I cheersed the wrong thing. And those were all of my most memorable reads for 2024. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you soon. Bye.